Hi, this is Roger in Finland, and today I'm sharing my first impressions of the Sony ZV-1 in 2021. I'm not sure if the ZV-1 is the promised best vlogging camera ever, but I'm pretty sure that it's one of the best compact cameras there are for video. And before getting into some more details, just to mention that I am filming with the Sony ZV-1 right now because I always like to use the gear that I'm reviewing. And at the moment I'm shooting at 4K 25p or 1/50 f2.5, which is the widest that it opens at this particular focal length, which I think is probably the equivalent to a 35mm in terms of field of view. ISO 320, and you're hearing me through an external audio. This is a Rode NG4 Plus into Zoom H5. And as a reminder, this video is about my first impressions and it's not a full review. But what did I want and why did I get this camera? By the way, I did get it in a really good deal secondhand, otherwise I don't think I would have bought it new. But what I wanted was, let me take my list. A compact camera which would be pocketable, like the Pocket 4K, that would have either a flip out or flip up screen. I prefer flip up, but flip out is okay. Good autofocus, good stabilization, microphone input. The lens I wanted to be around the 24 to 70-ish focal length, and I prefer that to the 28 to 100 or even to 100. So I prefer to have a little bit more on the wider end, and I don't need or care so much for the longer telephoto for these particular compact cameras. And then I wanted to have some good video specs, which in my case means 4K. I don't really care for slow motion, not in 4K or in Full HD, so this is more than okay on that. And then have some flexible picture profiles that would allow me to do color grading. So I actually guess that I just made a very quick review of the Sony ZV-1 because it ticks all of the boxes that I just mentioned. The closest thing to that list of specs other than the Sony ZV-1 would be the Sony also RX100 Mark VII, which does have a flip up screen, which I prefer. It does have an input jack for a microphone, except that it doesn't have any place to mount the microphone, and usually flip up screens are a challenge for that. And then the focal length is actually on that wrong end or wrong focal range for me, which is from 28 and in a slower aperture, then up to a much longer. Earlier RX100 have the lens that I would like or I would have liked, but then they did not have the audio capabilities. And with all of this said, still the RX100 Mark VII is about, what, 50% more expensive than this one new. This goes for about $850 and that one goes for $1250. So there you go. But after all this list of specs, so how is it to use now that I have had it in my hands for a little while? About using the camera then, this is the second time that I'm recording this video, and the reason is that the first time I tried to, I would set up the camera, I was recording, and when it was hitting about 4 minutes and a half limit, the camera would stop recording. Of course, I did freak out immediately because I bought it secondhand, so that something would be really wrong with it and I wouldn't know what to do and how to solve it. Then I thought that maybe it's the SD card, but no, it's a setting about the temperature and how the camera controls the temperature. So the setting is called Auto Power Off Temp. And if you set it to standard in 4K 25p, you get about 5 minutes of recording time. Then the camera did not shut off, it just stopped recording. But then if I put it too high, it doesn't seem to have any limit since the specs say that this camera can record for more than 30 minutes, or basically unlimited given that you have media and battery. So as usually, user error, but that was the first scare I got. Second thing maybe I want to talk is the ergonomics. So I'm usually used to have a bigger mirrorless cameras or the Pocket 4K, so plenty of buttons and plenty of customization. This is a compact camera, it's a very small one. Still has some customizable buttons, so all of that is good. The one really silly feature or design flaw which has been mentioned in many videos is the placement of the tripod thread. So if you mount a tripod, the camera is mounted on a tripod, or you have a tripod plate, even if it's a really tiny one, you can't open the hatch that holds the battery and the SD card. So you cannot change those things unless you really unscrew and dismount everything. So what I did, I got this L bracket. It's not an L bracket, it's like a bottom plate, and it adds a bigger handle, which is very nice. It makes the camera a bit nicer to hold, and then it basically offers a few thread holes more centered right under the lens, and it gives space for the door of the camera, battery and SD card compartment to be opened at any time without having it to take it off from the tripod. So I think that this small accessory, and it's something around 20 bucks, not sponsored, but there are affiliate links down below. So that's something that I definitely would recommend for this camera. And it solved the problem of the awkwardly placed tripod thread. And then there are some buttons, there's some customization, but the only rotating scroll wheel, it's the one in the back. And that means that if you're using manual configurations, like now I'm shooting in manual video mode and you want to change the aperture and shutter speed and maybe the exposure compensation, you have only one of those dials. So it gets a little bit fiddly and you just know how to use it. And maybe I'm missing, of course, the double dials of many of the bigger cameras, but again, you can't fit them here because it's small and it's one of the beauties of the camera itself. The one thing that annoys me the most, or the one thing that I would definitely like that it's here, which is in also the older compact cameras like the RX100, would be a mode dial. In the ZV-1, to change the different modes, you press the soft button and then you have in the screen the different menus or the different possibilities of different configurations, and then you choose it. The reason that I prefer actual physical dial is that in many occasions I twitch or switch that dial before I turn on the camera. So I know I'm going to be taking some pictures, I shoot the dial and then I take the pictures or I make the video. Now you always need to turn on the camera, change the mode and whatnot. So actually I would be fine with the physical switch, would switch the camera between movie and stills, and that would be enough for me, and then a bigger mode dial would be better. But that would be the one thing that if I could choose one single ergonomic improvement in this camera, would be that one. A better way of choosing the modes. And then it has another couple very neat features that I didn't even have in my checklist. One is it has integrated ND filters, which are very useful when you're outside in the sun and you want to use the camera first of all, or actually it's very useful when you want to lower the shutter speed in video. Nice feature, it's integrated here. The other one is that, as many other Sony cameras, it can be used as a webcam, which nowadays in the world that we're living in, then having so many online meetings is a useful thing. If you want to know how to use this, please check my video on how to use your Sony camera as a webcam. That video was done for the Sony a6400, but it also works for this one. Some couple of settings that you need to remember in Sony cameras in general that can work with the Imaging Edge webcam application for the computers is that you need to set your USB to PC remote. And to do that, you need to set the control with my smartphone off. Another thing that I just realized before making this video is that if you have the PC remote turned on in the camera, then the face detection is not activated. So if you want to keep using the camera, so autofocus will work all the time. But if you want to use the face and eye detect during video, then you need to put the PC remote to off. A few quirks, but something to remember. The next thing I wanted to talk about that I mentioned at the beginning are the picture profiles. So when this camera was announced about 11 months ago, many of the reviewers were saying that how great it is that we get in this affordable compact camera. Okay, it's maybe expensive for a compact camera, but anyway, you know what I mean. How great it is that we get professional profile color profiles for color grading like S-Log2, S-Log3 and HLG. Then many of them mentioned that, but only use it if you know what you're doing, otherwise go to PP1, which looks great. And the same reviewers, when reviewing other Sony cameras that also have 8-bit, like this one, were saying that S-Log2 is unusable if you're using 8-bit cameras, which by the way, basically only the newer Sony a7S III or then the FX Cinema line support 10 bits. So it means that we have a ton of Sony cameras that operate in 420 8-bit internally that give you S-Log2 and S-Log3, and then many people say that it's just unusable. It's true that 10-bit is better than 8. I started listening to some reviews lately of people saying that, well, with 12-bit you can actually color grade, but 10-bit is not enough. So 12 is better than 10, which is better than 8, but 8 is not useless. S-Log2 can be used with 8-bit cameras. I had a full video talking about this and showing how to color grade in DaVinci Resolve S-Log2 for the a6400. So I'll post the link here and down below maybe. And there, so I got help from actually somebody that knows how to do this. You can check that video if you want. And definitely S-Log is usable. And most of the video has been shot using HLG, which is a profile that I like very much in Sony cameras. But now for a while I've been using S-Log2. And now maybe I can put side to side a little bit the talking head with HLG. That guy now is talking, but he's silent. And here I am with S-Log2. I don't know which of the two either you prefer. Both have their own quirks and they both have their own advantages. S-Log should be giving you more dynamic range than HLG. HLG might be a little bit easier to create and work with, but I am just very happy that I have both, because they are pictures profiles that I have used with other Sony cameras, that they are the profiles I use with my a6400. So these are the profiles that I will be using for video with the Sony ZV-1. So what's my summary of these first impressions of the Sony ZV-1? Well, I like it very much, and you have seen samples during this whole video since it's shot with the Sony ZV-1. I probably have been putting some pictures and some videos that I took when I took this camera for a small holidays that we took with the family, and served the purpose perfectly. I wanted something really, really small to fit in the backpack, which was mostly filled with snacks and cups and spare clothes for the kids. So I didn't want, or they have space to take any bigger gear, but this one gave me excellent video, excellent features, then color profiles for video that I can use and I like how to use. So I think it's an excellent, excellent option. Then this is the first impressions. I might do a full review video, but as usually I would prefer to focus on some different aspects. So I have a list of ideas of things that I will be doing. So one will be testing microphones with it. So as said, most of the video you've been listening to me through the Rode NT-G4 because it's, well, the microphone that I have for this setup. But I think we're going to be testing different microphones to see which are better, which work well, because some of you might want to be using different microphones if you're either out there vlogging or for these kind of situations. Then I will have a separate video about color grading S-Log2 and HLG with footage coming from the ZV-1 specifically using DaVinci Resolve 17. Then stabilization, I said that it's good, but we know that Olympus and Panasonic are great. So I'm going to have some stabilization tests, especially in the vlogging context, between the ZV-1 and then the Olympus and Panasonic. So I have the G9 and the EM1 Mark 10, the EM1 Mark 2. And then even if I am not a vlogger, as in somebody that usually does the videos by holding the camera in front of him and then walking around, even though I thought that vlogging was about talking about once a day and it can be done without walking. But nowadays vlogging means walking with the camera. Anyway, we're going to do some vlogging tests comparing the ZV-1 with the EM1 Mark II from Olympus, which is a fairly compact, excellent autofocus, excellent stabilization. And then comparing to the Osmo Action, which is a really, really pocketable, compact action camera that I think is an excellent option for vlogging as well. And if you have any other questions or possible ideas for me to make videos on the Sony ZV-1, because again, this is my camera, it's not a review sample or anything like this. Obviously, this has not been sponsored by anyone other than myself. So please ask the questions, suggest what you would like to see me doing and testing and comparing the ZV-1 against, given that I would have that equipment. And hopefully you like this video. And if you did, please like and subscribe, and we're going to see you soon for some more content.